Yo, what is up, it's your boy JadeJonny back here in Perrim's Underworld. Hey, how you doing today, you beautiful people? Let's go ahead and have a nice little chat about Codemaster Dragonix. If you guys don't know who, I'm probably mispronouncing the name. Dragonix, Dragonix. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. We'll get, but let's go have a nice little chat about him and some of the things he told us. This is going to be a maybe a 3-part video. I'm not entirely certain. There's a lot of like stuff that I found extremely interesting that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't think would fit in this video because it's different than the stuff in this video, which is weird. But so I'm sorry. I'm like trying to figure out how to word things because they're different kinds of things. Okay, let's just go with that. We'll go with that, and yeah. So let's talk about Codemaster Dragonix. For those of you who don't know, Codemaster Dragonix, and if you would let me take, okay, cool. Codemaster Dragonix is Brian Fahmy, who has unfortunately passed away as of 2023. Rest in peace, my brother. Rest in peace. You shall be missed. He is, or was, or, but for this, I'm just gonna say is or was interchangeably, okay, for the rest of this video, okay? So just in case you guys are wondering, like, it's just gonna be interchangeable, okay? And so he is or was one of the first employees ever hired by TC Digital. He was one of the people, and he ended up turning into essentially Ganon's right-hand man. He went from being a organized play manager to a play tester to constantly being on the ground with Ganon. And I didn't save the pictures because I kind of figured this would be enough. And I mean, there's many people in the community who can verify, you know, the authenticity of the profile, the authenticity of him. Yeah, I mean, like, we know this was Brian Fahmy, okay? Like, it's just, there's so many things he knew that I had to dig for, like weeks to find on the internet. This is Brian Fahmy, and he verified it through pictures and other information on Discord. So, it was essentially Brian Gannon's right-hand man throughout the revival of Chaotic, and I think it seems kind of like he was endearing Chaotic, and they were very close friends. There was a video he posted where they were going through a Now or Never binder. There was a full master set of Now or Never in Ganon's garage. So I mean, he was close to Brian Gannon. Okay, so just to give you some context as to who he was. Now everything in this video is subject to change except for the stuff that's already happened. Okay, if they're talking about stuff that they were going to do in the past, they may not do that now. So, just a heads up that the things in this video are subject to change. I can't understate that enough, but I think that there's a lot of cool and interesting things that he's shared in the Discord that I just really wanted to talk about, and I thought this would be a good video to make. So, next up, they took our feedback. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, Maxwar sent him, Blue Maxwar in the Discord, he's the head moderator in the Discord, sent him a For the Health of Chaotic fan letter. Essentially, he's saying this is what we are asking for, and he read through it fully. He did clarify that he did read through it later on. You know, it doesn't say that he read it here because he's saying I'll be reading this through fully, but later on he does clarify that he read through it fully. Then he goes to talk about how he's taking in the financial aspect, or they're taking the financial aspect, the playability aspect, and everything into consideration whenever they're making the game. So when they're remaking the game. So that being said, yeah, he was also in the Discord earlier than when he started talking. So. He was actively checking in every now and then to see what was going on. Again, he's passed away, so obviously he's not checking it now. Or he might be, if you guys believe in afterlife. If you believe in an afterlife, he's probably still checking the Discord to make sure that we're not doing anything stupid. So, next up, he had a very specific way that he wanted to design cards. And one of those ways was by differentiating two different kinds of mechanics. There's engine mechanics and there's game mechanics. So, let's go ahead and jump into what that means. So, engine mechanics are essentially mechanics that go into the structure of setting up a game or setting up your deck to play a game, such as having music cards or having music counters. No, I think he said music counters were specifically. I believe that he said music counters were essentially Yeah, engine. Okay, yeah. Immediate counters are engine mechanic. Okay, cool. So engine count. It'd be like your deck essentially, locations, attacks, etc. Would all be engine mechanics, and then game mechanics would be like Mandiblore, Hive, recklessness, stuff like that would impact gameplay. So anything that would be taken place into consideration when building the deck or setting up the game would be a engine mechanic. Anything during the game that impacts gameplay would be a gameplay mechanic. Now there is something he mentions later on. Oh, also elemental impersonators would introduce a new major engine level mechanic. That's whatever, right? That's whatever. We can't even begin to speculate on what that would be. Okay, we cannot begin to speculate on what that would be for the engine level mechanic. I mean, it could be anything as new as a new deck or a new tribe. It could literally be anything. So we're not even going to begin to speculate on what elemental emperors would have introduced. Now, in the video, in part 2 of the video, or part 2 of this video series, we'll be going over some like things like he mentions, like there's a new mechanic entirely. There was planned to be a new mechanic entirely, and a future set. We'll go over that later in another video because that's just not going to work with this one. And then there's a lot of other things that work with that in the other video. So I'm just going to save that for the next video. So next up, let's talk about formats. Not like text formats, like this is a horrible text format for this kind of video, but formats as in for TCGs. So, Dragonix was a huge fan of multiple formats and games. This would be like, think Commander, Draft, Sealed, Legacy, Vintage, Modern, Standard. In terms of MTG and Pokemon, it'd be like Expanded, Sealed. It'd be like... You can probably hear my dogs, can't you? Yeah, that's... yep. It'd be like, in terms of Pokemon, it'd be like Expanded, Standard. It'd be like Sealed. It would be, constructed, pre-constructed. It'd be stuff like that, right? Where it's essentially the different kinds of formats that you can play to do that. And so one of the things that he was a huge advocate was introducing new formats, and he goes on later on. We'll go into rotation and stuff like that, because he does mention rotation. We do have a slide in here for rotation. But he has been a huge advocate for that. I think that Ganon will more than likely support this idea, because it's just, if Dragonix said it and Dragonix and him were as close as he was, it makes sense that he would trust Dragonix's, thing. And a lot of players also want this to happen. I mean, we have, massive power disparity between, the different sets and rotations and stuff like that. And so you could easily rotate the cards out and then hold the legacy, format as well. So, yeah, he just to say he is a major advocate for that kind of stuff. Next up, we have rotation. I mentioned we were going to talk about rotation. So AU block was actually supposed to rotate out the first year's worth of sets. So everything that was just chaotic and not like Brilliant Invasion, not Secrets of the Lost City, etc. Right? It was supposed to rotate everything out that was before that. You were supposed to be rotating out that kind of stuff, and it didn't get implemented. Unfortunately, it did not get implemented. There's a lot of cards that are problematic, like Lord Von Blute. I mean, honestly, I don't think that the first set was honestly that problematic. Like cards like Bramble Smash are perfectly fine, but everyone disagrees with me. I don't think. Yeah. So those sets that were originally supposed to rotate out, and unfortunately that didn't come into consideration. However, Ganon has mentioned that they are going to pick up where they left off, essentially in printing cards. And it'd be really interesting to see if they stick with their original idea of printing, and after the AU block is released, they rotate out the original first sets. Or if they just skip all that and they just rotate out everything before the AU block is wrapped up printing. Next up, we have variable stats. Now, this is a controversial topic, I have learned. So, let me say that some of this stuff in this is already confirmed via Ganon. To be happening as early as 2023, or as late as 2023. So, as of 2 years ago, some of this stuff is already confirmed. So, let's talk about it. So, first of all, the testing team absolutely loathed the idea of variable stats, which I could understand. You have to plan for like certain cards being unable to play certain cards. Like I think it was like Rage Trod at a certain stat variable can't resolve cards like I want to say it was Fire Ram. I can't recall all the cards correctly, but I know that it was a card that I really wanted to play and I couldn't play it. And I love playing Rage Trod, so I'm going to assume it was Rage Trod. But it was like min stat Rage Trod or something like that. I couldn't play Fire Ram, and so they absolutely hate it because I couldn't test it for all the specific qualifications, cards like that, right? Next up, we have the pool rates are bad. It's something we plan to address, and then he goes on later to explain, like at a completely different time. Actually, it's like 3 minutes apart. Huh. Interesting. But you could pull a fully max or fully minimum card, and they want to correct that in the future. Ganon does go to explain that they're going, did explain in the future that they were going to be releasing a lower variables of what you could potentially pull. So I don't know if that means like instead of having like 15 different variable stat points, it'd end up being like 5 or 10 different variable. I don't know what that entails entirely, but Ganon does confirm that they're still doing that. Next up, we have Brian Kibler. This is in here because I just love talking about Brian Kibler. He's a very handsome man, and Dragonix talked about Brian Kibler, which gives me a reason to talk about Brian Kibler. And I love Brian Kibler. So, Brian Kibler was apparently a Codemaster. I don't know if that's actually what that means, but Brian Kibler was apparently a Codemaster. And he played Underworld Burn, which that's my deck. I love that deck. Brian Kibler, we have something in common. You should hit me up so we can do a chaotic interview, Brian Kibler. I would love to ask you about chaotic, Brian Kibler. I love you, Brian Kibler. You're like my idol. I grew up idolizing you, and that hasn't changed. Anyways, so Dragonix's preference is also Mepetians. He goes on to talk a lot about Mepetians in the future because I'll be like, not in the future, but like past this post, he goes on to talk about Mepetians a lot because he loves Mepetians. Appreciate that. Next, he said the best internal player that he've ever met was Brian Kibler. That makes sense. Brian Kibler's the freaking GOAT, Like, there's not much else to talk about but Brian Kibler except for him being the GOAT. He also goes to say that he would love to get Brian Kibler involved again. I don't know if Ganon is going to reach out to a Brian Kibler now that, Dragonix has passed, but I don't think Kibler would have the time for that. He does do a full-time Commander show on his YouTube channel. He is also a full-time Hearthstone streamer. And he does commentate for Hearthstone World sometimes, or Hearthstone Tournament sometimes, so I don't know if he'd be willing to do that. Brian Kibler also came in only at the later stages of Chaotic. He was only really involved in the AU block, which explains why some of the earlier rulings aren't as neat as they could be, is because Kibler only came in on that second iteration of the rulings, not the first. Next, we have additional information that couldn't fit into the part 2 or take enough space for its own slide. Now, so first of all, comprehensive rules will not be released until after the game has been announced, and when I say after, I mean much later than after. Okay, it's gonna take a couple months afterwards for them to get the comprehensive rules out. Next up, we have we're gonna have a grassroots ambassador program, which will allow people to become a grassroots ambassador to get their communities involved in the game. This is essentially going to your LGS and saying, hey, can I host chaotic demos? Or, hey, chaotic's a really great game. Is there any opportunity for you to reach out to them to see if you can carry their cards, or reach out to distributors to carry their cards? That's essentially what it does. Lestrals is doing a similar thing right now, if you guys don't know. And yeah, so next up is Zamul. Zamul wouldn't have been crazy if the rest of Block 3 was released. He does mention later on that Zamul was going to be eroded, and that they were going to be implementing a ban list if that wasn't enough. So, if Block 3 had continued, which is essentially the AU block, then Zamul wouldn't have been that big of a deal. And considering we were going to get a new engine level mechanic in Elemental Emperors, I think that those two things were probably related to some extent, because Zamul may not have been able to turn off the new mechanic in Elemental Emperors. Next up, there won't be a concern. Can't expand more than that, but it will possibly be played globally, although I'm sure people can extrapolate what I'm remembering. Essentially, he's saying that he wants, whenever they release the game, they want it to be available globally. They were talking about this digitally initially, so I don't know if they're talking about releasing the game digitally, or if they're talking about releasing the TCG and the game digitally, globally. In my mind, I'm assuming they meant just the game, not the TCG, because especially nowadays. It's just it's very difficult for something like that to happen extremely quickly. So I think that they're just talking about the digital game, not the TCG. Releasing all at once. I think it's just going to be the digital game. And then last but not least, somebody says, do you think it's possible to bring back the old cards, codes, and random stats with a new modernized game? And he said he's going to sit back and watch and look. Gannon's like extrapolated that a bit, or Gannon's like explained some of that a bit. But I do think it's interesting that he wanted to see everybody's opinions and thoughts. So that's going to be the additional info slide right there. Next up, we have the call to action. Subscribe to the channel and like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel so that I can hit 1,000 subs, so I can interview Gannon by saying that we're all still here and we're all still waiting. And also share the video, because the more people see this, the more people remember Chaotic and love it. Also, go watch Jovanator, Rogue, and Codemaster Azai. They're all amazing content creators. Jovanator's just gotten back into uploading videos, and he's doing entertaining challenges. Rogue is doing a lot of deck profiles, and Azai has been doing deck profiles and matches consistently over the last few years. So go check all those channels out. They're all amazing people. They're all amazing content creators. All of them have interesting ideas and deck profiles. It's really interesting people to watch. And also go follow Chaotic Kangaskhan and Chaotic Crow on Instagram. They're both, consistent content creators. Chaotic Kangaskhan is a good friend of is a good Chaotic friend of mine. He shares cards all the time on Instagram, and he shares his very vast Chaotic collection. Chaotic Crow, very similar to that, also has a very vast Chaotic collection, and both of them share it constantly. If there's a Chaotic product that you want to see that is rare or valuable, it's probably on there, and they are very, very consistent on sharing those cards. That being said, I have been JadeJonny and the Perrim's Underworld, and I just wanted to make a video just going over some of the things that Dragonix shared that I thought was really interesting. So if you guys learned anything new, or if you guys thought anything was interesting, tell me down in the comment section below. Tell me what you guys thought about what he shared, or if you guys think a lot of it's out of date, or if you guys have just lost hope, and just even seeing a Chaotic staff member had been active in the community just isn't enough for you. Tell me all that and more down in the comment section down below. I have been JadeJonny. This is Perrim's Underworld, and I will see you in the dromes. Let's port to Perrim.